Imagine saying goodbye to someone you love, your father, your brother, your husband, as he boards a ship bound for glory. You wait for a letter, a word, anything. But all that ever comes back is silence. For over a century, the frozen north kept its secrets buried beneath the ice, until now, because what really happened to the Franklin expedition is far darker than anyone expected. In 1845, a time of bold exploration, when Sir John Franklin led HMS Erebus and HMS Terror into the Arctic, seeking the fabled Northwest Passage, a shortcut through the ice that promised to change the world. The expedition was hailed as unstoppable. 129 men, two of the most advanced ships of their time. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were the pride of the Royal Navy, state-of-the-art ships designed to withstand the Arctic's brutal conditions. Heated cabins, reinforced hulls, and 3 years of supplies. It was believed they could outlast the ice, navigate the uncharted waters, and return as legends. For months, the journey was smooth. By July, the Franklin Arctic expedition was seen in Baffin Bay, heading into the uncharted northern waters of Canada. It was the last time any European eyes would ever see them. Then they disappeared. No distress signals, no survivors, just silence. The Franklin expedition was meant to be the greatest Arctic voyage in history. Instead, it became a frozen graveyard. For nearly 170 years, all that remained were cryptic clues. A single note left in a metal canister, skeletons found miles apart, and chilling Inuit accounts of starving men wandering the ice, some resorting to unthinkable measures to survive. And then, when the wrecks were finally found, they only raised more questions. The ships were surprisingly intact, but in places they were never meant to be. Who moved them? Why were the captain's quarters sealed tight, while the rest of the ship stood open to the elements? The Franklin expedition was supposed to be a victory. Instead, it became one of the greatest maritime mysteries in history, known as the doomed Franklin expedition. And as we dig deeper, the truth may be far more unsettling than anyone ever imagined. The truth about the 19th century explorers. Tonight, we will discover what really happened in those final desperate days. Was it the ice or something even more terrifying? Before you decide, listen closely, because the Arctic never gives up its secrets easily. Let's step aboard as we unravel the truth of the Franklin expedition, Sir John Franklin mystery. The past is frozen, but the mystery is far from over. Let us begin. The man behind the expedition. Sir John Franklin was not just another captain. He was a man chasing glory, one last chance to make history. Born in 1786, Franklin had already cemented his name in the annals of naval warfare, fighting in the Battle of Trafalgar and serving across the globe. But his true passion was the Arctic. By the time he led the Franklin Arctic expedition, he was 59 years old, an age when most explorers had long since retired. He had already survived one failed attempt to map the Northwest Passage, nearly starving to their end during his first overland expedition in the Canadian wilderness. The ordeal was so brutal that Franklin and his men were forced to eat their own leather boots to survive. The press dubbed him the man who ate his boots, a name that stuck with him for the rest of his life. But failure wasn't an option this time. Despite his declining health and previous missteps, Franklin was determined. The British Admiralty saw the Northwest Passage as the ultimate prize, an Arctic shortcut that would link the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, giving Britain global dominance over maritime trade. Every expedition before had failed, But with Erebus and Terror, Franklin believed he had the technology, the provisions, and the experience to succeed. Yet as the Arctic ice closed in, it wasn't experience or technology that mattered. It was survival. Do you think Franklin was a fearless leader, or was he blinded by ambition? The voyage begins. Two mighty ships, a crew of 129, 3 years of supplies. The Franklin expedition was prepared for everything, except for what was waiting in the ice. By May 19th, 1845, the Franklin Arctic expedition was ready to set sail. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were more than just ships. They were floating fortresses. Both vessels had survived punishing Antarctic voyages under Sir James Clark Ross and were now fitted with the latest technology. Their hulls were reinforced with iron. Their decks were lined with steam-powered heating, and Erebus and Terror even had locomotive engines to propel them through the Arctic's frozen maze. On board were 129 men, each handpicked for their skills, strength, and discipline. At their head was Sir John Franklin, determined to conquer the Northwest Passage and cement his place in history. Alongside him were seasoned officers like Captain Francis Crozier and James Fitzjames, men who had faced Arctic extremes before. With 3 years of supplies, the expedition was considered unstoppable. Their provisions included 32,000 pounds of salted meat, 1,000 pounds of raisins, 580 gallons of pickles, and 8,000 tin cans of preserved food, a relatively new innovation meant to sustain them through the long Arctic winters. By July 1845, the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror reached their last known stop, Baffin Bay. Here, they made final contact with British whaling ships, sending their last letters home. Spirits were high, optimism was strong. No one suspected that this would be the last time the civilized world would ever hear from them. Then, the ships disappeared into the Arctic void. No distress calls, no wreckage. Everything was silent. As they sailed deeper into the ice, they were heading straight into a trap. One that no one would escape. The Franklin expedition seemed unstoppable, so what really went wrong? Was it the ice, the supplies, or something they never saw coming? What really happened to the Franklin expedition? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Before we dive deeper, if you're finding yourself pulled into this story like I was, wondering what it must have felt like to step into the Arctic and never return, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know, and it tells me you want more of these lost stories, forgotten voices frozen in time that deserve to be heard again. All right, let's keep going. Into the unknown. By September 1846, the Franklin Arctic expedition came to a standstill. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, once symbols of progress, were now frozen in place near King William Island. What was meant to be a triumphant journey through the Northwest Passage had turned into an unsettling test of endurance. For months, the 129 men waited, hoping the ice would release its grip. But the Arctic had other plans. Temperatures plummeted, the sun vanished for months, and supplies grew scarce. Despite carrying provisions for 3 years, an invisible threat had already begun working against them, one that no one had foreseen. Their 8,000 canned food tins, meant to sustain them, were unknowingly contaminated. The lead-sealed cans were rushed through production, exposing the crew to something that slowly impacted their minds and bodies. Confusion, fatigue, and weakness set in, a dangerous combination for men navigating one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Then, tragedy struck. Sir John Franklin was gone. The official reports never confirmed the exact cause. Some believe it was a result of illness or the extreme cold. Others suggest he may have been one of the first to succumb to the expedition's growing hardships. With their leader lost, the crew's already fragile morale began to falter. Francis Crozier, an experienced Arctic officer, took command, but even he must have sensed that their survival was slipping away. But with their leader gone and no escape in sight, the question becomes chillingly simple. Who was the last to die? Then came the victory point note, the only written message left behind by the crew. In May 1847, it was carefully placed inside a rock cairn on King William Island. The first entry, written in precise script, reported that all was well. But the second entry, added a year later on the same note, revealed an entirely different reality, that by April 1848, 24 men were gone, including Franklin himself. The remaining officers and crew had made a final, desperate decision. They would leave their ships behind and attempt a brutal 1,000-mile journey south, hauling their remaining supplies in search of rescue. It was a choice made out of necessity. Some were already too weak to continue, their bodies struggling under the conditions. Their supplies were running low, and the relentless Arctic cold was closing in. But the question remains, why did so many fall so quickly? Was it the tainted rations, a combination of harsh conditions, or was there something else, something history has yet to uncover? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think was the true turning point of the Franklin expedition wreck? Their ordeal now stands among the most chilling Arctic survival horror stories ever recorded. The Vanishing. By April 1848, the Franklin Arctic expedition faced its breaking point. After nearly 2 years of being trapped in the unforgiving ice near King William Island, the decision was made that HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were to be abandoned. What was once an ambitious mission to conquer the Northwest Passage had become a desperate struggle for survival, an Arctic exploration gone wrong. They weren't just leaving ships behind, they were leaving hope. Every step into the white wasteland meant fewer would make it home. With 105 men remaining, Captain Francis Crozier led them on a perilous journey south, hoping to reach safety. They aimed for the Back River, where they believed they could find help. But the Arctic had already taken its toll. Their supplies were dwindling, their strength fading, and their bodies suffering from the invisible effects of the tainted provisions. As the remaining Franklin expedition crew members pressed forward, they were met with insurmountable odds. They had limited supplies, no proper shelter, and a landscape that offered no mercy. Rescue teams began their search. By the time rescue efforts began searching for them, it was already too late. They had vanished into the ice, leaving behind only fragments of their story, a single note, scattered artifacts, and the chilling testimonies of those who saw them in their final days. Search parties found no trace of the ships themselves, but they did uncover haunting fragments of the crew's last days, scattered relics, skeletal remains, and makeshift campsites on King William Island. The most chilling clues came not from maps or journals, but from Inuit accounts, stories of starving men dragging sledges, speaking in strange tongues, and slowly vanishing into the snow. The ships were discovered only in the 21st century, Erebus in 2014, and Terror in 2016, almost 170 years after they vanished. But more about that later. Inuit accounts of the Franklin expedition provided a chilling window into their last moments. According to oral histories passed down for generations, the crew of the Franklin expedition was seen wandering the ice, hollow-eyed, moving without purpose, like ghosts. Their testimonies provided crucial insights into the expedition's tragic end. They reported that one ship drifted ashore and was extensively scavenged, while another, containing numerous bodies, sank abruptly and was seldom accessed. These accounts highlight the importance of indigenous knowledge in unraveling the mystery of the Franklin expedition. The Inuit recalled stumbling upon abandoned campsites, strange objects, and men who seemed confused, speaking in languages they could not understand. Some reports describe men who refused help, continuing their doomed march southward. But what truly happened during their desperate escape? Was it simply the elements that sealed their fate? Or was there something more haunting about their final moments? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Could the Franklin expedition have survived if they had made different choices? Search parties and theories. The Franklin expedition was never meant to disappear without a trace. When Sir John Franklin and his crew failed to return, the British Admiralty initially dismissed concerns. Arctic voyages were known for delays, and they believed the men would eventually find their way home. But one woman refused to accept silence as an answer. Lady Jane Franklin, the wife of John Franklin, became the driving force behind the search for the lost expedition. When officials hesitated, she used her influence and personal funds to commission independent rescue missions. She pressured the British Empire to take action, and eventually the Admiralty launched a series of official search efforts. Between 1848 and 1859, more than 40 search expeditions scoured the Arctic, hoping to find survivors or at least uncover what had happened. After many years, these missions found scattered artifacts from the Franklin expedition. A single note left in a rock cairn, a few skeletons lying miles apart, and remnants of abandoned campsites. No survivors, no clear answers, but as more evidence emerged, so did dark and unsettling theories. Scientists and historians have long debated, why did the Franklin expedition fail? Several possible explanations have been uncovered, each more chilling than the last. One theory suggests that lead poisoning played a deadly role. The expedition's provisions included 8,000 cans of preserved food, which were sealed using lead-based solder. Modern forensic tests on the bodies of the Franklin expedition revealed dangerously high levels of lead, which could have caused cognitive decline, paranoia, and sickness, turning an already dire situation into a death sentence. Another possible cause was scurvy and starvation. Despite having 3 years' worth of supplies, the harsh Arctic conditions made it nearly impossible to supplement their diet with fresh food. Malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies would have weakened the men, making survival an impossible battle. Then there was the extreme cold and isolation. Trapped in ice for nearly 2 years with no way to escape, the crew likely suffered from depression, hypothermia, and declining morale. The longer they waited, the slimmer their chances of rescue became. In 1854, Scottish explorer John Rae returned from his own Arctic journey with a disturbing claim. According to Inuit accounts of the Franklin expedition, some of the men had resorted to cannibalism in their final moments. Rae reported that the Inuit had also found scattered bones with unusual cut marks, suggesting that Franklin's men, driven by starvation, may have turned to unthinkable means of survival. The revelation caused an uproar in England. The public refused to believe that Royal Navy officers, men of discipline and honor, could have done such a thing. Even Charles Dickens publicly dismissed the idea, insisting that the Franklin expedition crew would have died before breaking their moral code. For decades, the claim remained controversial, but modern forensic examinations on the bones of the Franklin expedition confirmed what Victorian England once denied. Some remains did, in fact, show signs of cut marks consistent with butchering, confirming Franklin expedition cannibalism. Advancements in DNA analysis have recently led to the identification of crew members' remains. Notably, in 2024, researchers confirmed that bones found on King William Island belonged to Captain James Fitzjames, the commander of HMS Erebus. This discovery provides a poignant connection to the individuals who endured the expedition's hardships. What really happened? Was the Franklin expedition doomed from the start, or did they make a fatal mistake that sealed their fate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Could the Franklin expedition have survived under different circumstances, or was their fate inevitable? Haunted by the past. For nearly 2 centuries, the Franklin expedition has remained a chilling tale of the 19th century mysteries, misfortune, and unanswered questions. But what if the tragedy didn't end with the lost crew after the Northwest Passage disaster? What if the expedition left behind something more than frozen wreckage, a shadow of misfortune that followed those who dared to seek the truth? The search for the Franklin Arctic expedition became an obsession for many, but for some, it also became their undoing. Explorer after explorer who ventured into the Arctic in search of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror faced unexpected hardships, sudden illnesses, unexplained shipwrecks, and disappearances that defied logic. One of the most unsettling cases was Charles Francis Hall, an American explorer who spent years trying to uncover the fate of Franklin's crew. In 1871, while leading his own Arctic expedition, Hall fell mysteriously ill after drinking a cup of coffee. He grew convinced that something or someone was working against him. His condition rapidly worsened, and he never recovered. Over a century later, scientists examined his remains and found high levels of arsenic, confirming his fears. Was it sabotage or something even stranger? Many others who ventured into the Arctic to locate the Franklin expedition ships faced harsh fates and eerie accounts of men who were reported to have mental instability. It was almost as if the expedition did not want to be found. Was it the relentless Arctic cold or something deeper? When shocking discoveries about the Franklin expedition crew surfaced, Victorian England refused to accept them. The British Empire saw Franklin and his men as heroes, and they suppressed or dismissed any evidence that suggested otherwise. After explorer John Ray reported Inuit accounts of the Franklin expedition, which included troubling details of their final days, he was publicly ridiculed. Charles Dickens and other influential figures dismissed the stories, calling them wild fabrications. Instead of acknowledging the disturbing reality, official reports glorified Franklin's mission, portraying the men as brave explorers who faced their end with honor. For decades, the truth of what happened to Franklin's crew was buried beneath official records, until modern forensic science confirmed what was once denied. Even though the Inuit people of the Arctic had long told stories about the strange white men who wandered the ice, starving and lost. But their accounts also spoke of something more unsettling, that Franklin's crew may have disturbed something ancient, something that did not welcome outsiders. According to Inuit oral history, some of Franklin's men took what was not theirs, violating sacred lands or hunting in forbidden places. Their stories warn that those who disrespect the Arctic may face forces beyond their understanding. Some versions even suggest that the crew met a fate sealed by the land itself, the ice closing in, their minds unraveling, their way home forever lost. For all of Britain's naval power and modern forensic science, it was centuries-old storytelling that held the key to unlocking the mystery of the Franklin expedition. So, what do you believe? Was it just bad luck that Franklin's crew vanished so completely, or the Inuit people thrived in the same brutal conditions for generations? Or was there something else ensuring that these outsiders would never return? Discovery of the ships. For nearly 170 years, explorers and historians searched for the lost Franklin expedition ships, believing them to be lost forever. Yet the Inuit people always knew where they were. Long before modern sonar technology, Inuit elders told stories of a great ship trapped beneath the ice, abandoned by its desperate crew. The fate of the Franklin expedition remained frozen in time, a mystery trapped beneath the Arctic ice, a creepy shipwreck in history. But in 2014, history changed forever. After centuries of speculation, the wreck of HMS Erebus was discovered in the icy waters near King William Island. It was found exactly where Inuit oral history had described it. 2 years later, HMS Terror was also located once again, in a place the Inuit people had pointed to for generations. But instead of bringing closure, their discovery only deepened the mystery. What shocked researchers wasn't just that the Franklin expedition ships were found, but where they were found. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were located miles away from where they were expected to be, in areas far from their last recorded positions. Even more unsettling, the ships were remarkably intact. Their hulls were not destroyed, their wooden structures preserved by the freezing depths. Inside, time had stood still. Plates were still stacked on shelves, drawers remained closed. Scientific instruments lay undisturbed, as if waiting for their owners to return. And yet, the crew was nowhere to be found. How did the Franklin expedition ships end up so far from their last recorded location? Did someone return to them? Did someone move them? If so, who and why? One of the most eerie discoveries was found deep within HMS Terror. While most doors on the ship were mysteriously left wide open, one stood sealed shut, a captain's cabin locked from the inside. Why? Was this an attempt to escape something or keep something out? Adding to the mystery, logbooks, journals, and personal records that could have revealed the truth were missing. If they were taken, who removed them? Was there a final record of the crew's fate, hidden away, lost in the ice? The discovery of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror solved one part of the mystery, but many questions remain. Why were the ships abandoned when they were still intact? What happened to the missing records? Did someone survive longer than history claims? For nearly 2 centuries, the Franklin expedition has been a puzzle frozen in time. But even with the wrecks uncovered, one question remains. What really happened in those final moments? Was the Franklin expedition cursed? What do you think? Did Franklin's men leave behind a final record of their fate, or are their secrets still buried beneath the ice? Let us know in the comments. The ice never forgets. For nearly 2 centuries, the Franklin expedition, an Arctic expedition gone wrong, has remained one of history's most haunting maritime mysteries. 2 state-of-the-art ships, 129 men, and a mission to claim the Northwest Passage, only to vanish without a trace. Even with the discovery of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, the Arctic has refused to give up all its secrets. We know where they were found, but not why they were abandoned. We know the crew set off on foot, but not how they met their end. The remains tell one story, the legends another. The Inuit people warned of forces in the Arctic that do not welcome outsiders. History tells us that those who searched for Franklin often met strange fates themselves. Even now, those who step onto the frozen wasteland of the Arctic say the silence feels different there, as if something is still watching. Imagine standing in the endless white, the cold sinking into your bones, the wind howling like a distant whisper, no maps, no escape. What would you have done? Could you have endured where Franklin's men could not? The Franklin expedition's enduring enigma has permeated modern media, notably inspiring AMC's television series, The Terror. This adaptation has reignited public fascination and led to collaborative efforts between fans and historians, further exploring the expedition's legacy and its haunting narrative.
Imagine sailing across the Atlantic when suddenly every person around you is gone. No screams, no struggle, just silence. December 4th, 1872. A ghost ship drifts aimlessly across the ocean, its sails billowing in the wind, its cargo untouched, its deck eerily silent. The Mary Celeste should have been bustling with life, but instead it is empty. What would make an entire crew disappear? Today, we dive into one of the strangest maritime mysteries of all time. This isn't just a legend. It's an unsolved case with no answers, even today.